Hello, I'm Michael Caine. I bet you didn't know that. Welcome to the radio. Here is your host, John Santo. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the radio's premiere. What is it? Premiere or inaugural episode? I don't even know what the right word is. Premiere episode on Strong Island TV and radio. We're on Strong Island Radio. Here at the Strong Island Studios in beautiful downtown Massapequa. And we're coming to you live on this 11th day of November, 2019. And I just want to say thank you to our veterans. Today is Veterans Day, and one of the traditions we're going to have with the show is what happened on this date. I'm a big history buff, so on this date in 1918, fighting in World War I ended as the Allies and Germany signed the armistice. That's why, and that was, I believe, the 11th minute of the 11th hour, which is why, of the 11th day of the month of November, which is why Veterans Day is on November 11th. Also on this day, Gemini 12, the final flight of the Gemini program, blasted off from Cape Canaveral, Florida, with astronauts Jim Lovell and Buzz Aldrin. Buzz Aldrin would later walk on the moon in Apollo 11, and that was Jim Lovell's fourth space flight, making him the most traveled person alive. He had flown multiple orbits around the Earth. I'm sorry, that was his second space flight. Multiple orbits around the Earth, making him he had the most miles of any astronaut through the end of the Gemini program. And that was the final flight of the Gemini program, which was a dress rehearsal for the flights to the moon, which would start 2 years later. So in breaking news, we have Mayor Michael Bloomberg. He joined the presidential race in what's shaping up to be the battle of the billionaires if Michael Bloomberg is the nominee, which would be my preference as a presidential impressionist. That would guarantee me another 4 years of presidential impersonating. I've been doing that since Ronald Reagan. So it's in my best interest to have somebody whose voice I can do. And he was mayor of New York, so lazy for me, I already do the voice. So whether it's Trump or Bloomberg, doesn't matter to me. As long as I can do the voice, that's all I care about. So that's a very pragmatic view. And actually, Mayor Bloomberg is joining us on the phone. Mr. Mayor, welcome to the radio. Thank you, John. It's great to be here. So, Mayor Bloomberg, as mayor of New York City, you had that soda rule, no more than X number of ounces of soda. Would you do that as president? Absolutely. You shouldn't be drinking soda over a certain number of ounces. Well, Mr. Mayor, you know what's funny? I was holding a 20-ounce soda in New York City. I'd just gotten it from a Subway, and a cop was looking at me, and they said, "Don't shoot, it's seltzer." So do you really think that we should be regulating that? Yes, I do, because soda's banned for you. Well, I disagree. As a shareholder in the Coca-Cola Corporation, I think that soda is no, I'm kidding. Soda isn't good for you in big amounts. I do agree with you there, but I don't know if we should be telling people what they should drink. I think suggesting that they drink less soda might be the way to go. But I didn't agree with you on that regulation. But I don't really care about that. Like I said, as long as one of you two wins, I can keep doing my presidential impressions. Thank you for having me on the show, John. By the way, you're a hack. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for being the first guest on the radio. Those will probably be the highest rated debates. That would actually be comedy gold for me. So we're looking forward to that very much. We do have a story out of the Liberty Science Center in New Jersey. Tom Brokaw is our correspondent. We're going to go live to Tom Brokaw at the Liberty Science Center for his announcement. Good evening. This is Tom Brokaw. The planet Pluto is now a planet again. The astronomy people have designated that Pluto can once again be a planet. For a commentary on that, here at the Liberty Science Center in New Jersey, we're speaking to the two New Jersey residents, Anthony Soprano and Bobby Bacala, his brother-in-law. Gentlemen, what do you think about this stunning announcement about Pluto?
Yeah, this is Anthony Soprano. First of all, I think it was bullshit that they ever took away its planet ship. I mean, it's a frickin' planet, for God's sakes. How do you change it for? I mean, we grew up as kids thinking Pluto's a planet, and all of a sudden these astronomy guys say it's not. Have they been there?
All right, Mr. Bacala, what's your opinion?
I mean, I agree with my brother-in-law there. For years, Pluto was a planet, a Disney character. All of a sudden, they decide it's not a planet. Who does that? I mean, we grew up with 9 planets in the solar system. We got our frickin' posters in the science class. And then what do? You put an asterisk? Or you delete it? It's nonsense. I agree. Frickin' Pluto. It's a Disney character and everything. They should leave it the frick alone.
Well, thank you for that opinion from our 2 New Jersey residents, Anthony Soprano and Bobby Bacala. Thank you, Tom, for that report from the Liberty Science Center in New Jersey. Also in history, the Cold War ended in November of 1989 with the fall of the Berlin Wall. Coincidentally, 1 year prior to that, the B-2 bomber was rolled out in Palmdale, California, the Northrop B-2 bomber, which was the world's first stealth bomber. It was declassified and shown to the public, and that essentially made the Russians give up. And a lot of people criticized whether or not Ronald Reagan really played a role in that, so I thought we'd bring in Ronald Reagan to explain. Mr. President, welcome to the radio. We know you're joining us from heaven, so we thank you for being here.
Well, John, thanks. It's great to be back on the radio. I've been out of the game a long time, and it's great to be here.
So, Mr. President, what do you say to your critics that say that you didn't have anything to do with ending the Cold War?
Well, if I didn't have anything to do with it, then why did it end? Basically, we knew that we had to negotiate through strength. So we wanted to make sure we had more bombs than the Soviets. And that's what we did. We built up our military, we built up our Air Force, we built up our Navy, and we built up our nuclear weapons delivery capability. And the B-2 was definitely the straw that broke the camel's back, because a year later, less than a year later, the Berlin Wall fell.
That is true. It was kind of coincidental. I thought that within exactly about a year that the B-2 was introduced, that basically ended the Cold War. What do you think about Korea?
Well, I think everybody should have a Korea.
No, Korea, the situation in Korea.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I think we need to do the same thing that we did in the Cold War with Korea.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. Former President Ronald Reagan joining us from heaven. How is heaven, by the way? Are you liking it?
It's terrific. You never have to wait for a tea time, and I just played golf with Richard Nixon and Abraham Lincoln.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. Thank you again, President Reagan. And now I think we have a weather update. Let's go to our weather man, Mr. Morgan Freeman.
Tonight, a 20% chance of rain after 4 a.m. Partly cloudy with a low around 43. South wind 7 to 10 miles per hour. Tuesday, rain likely, mainly between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Mostly cloudy, with the temperature falling to around 36 by 5 p.m. Wind chill values between 25 and 35. I know that's a big range, but that's what they gave me. Southwest wind 11 to 16 miles per hour, becoming northwest in the afternoon. I don't know if anybody cares about the direction of the wind, but that's where it's coming from. Winds could gust as high as 28 miles per hour, or they could not. But they might. They could. They probably will, but maybe they won't. Chance of precipitation is 70%. That means there's a 7 in 10 chance that it'll precipitate, but a 30% chance that it won't. So if it doesn't, are we in the 30 or the 70? Does that make it 50-50, 40-60, or 80-20? That I do not know. All I know is it might rain or it might not. There's a 7 in 10 chance that it will, but a 3 in 10 chance that it won't. which means bring your umbrella. And if it rains, open it. If it doesn't, keep it closed. New precipitation amounts between a tenth and a quarter of an inch are possible, and probably likely, but somewhat unlikely, but probably likely. Tuesday night, partly cloudy with a low around 22. Wind chill values between 10 and 20. Blustery. I don't know how they get that word, but they do. Blustery, with a northwest wind 17 to 20 miles per hour, with gusts as high as 31 miles per hour. But maybe less. Maybe a little more, but probably not much. Wednesday, sunny with a high near 34, northwest wind 13 to 16 miles per hour, with gusts as high as 28 miles per hour. I don't know how they get this either, folks, but they do. And Wednesday, mostly clear with a low around 25. It's going to be cold. If Michael Jackson was still alive, he'd wear 2 gloves. And so should you. That's the weather with Morgan Freeman. Thank you, Morgan Freeman, for that weather update. And we have a traffic situation. We now go live to our traffic consigliere, Silvio Dante. Silvio, how's the traffic?
Suffice to say, it's bad. There's a little bit of congestion on Route 347. What the frick else is new? Suffolk County, always bad traffic out there. They should make the lights a little longer so the cars can frickin' move. Anyway, you got the typical bullshit traffic, Nichols Road over there. Southern State looks good, Northern State looks good, until it transitions over to 347, then you're screwed as usual. A lot of traffic over there by the mall. The LAE, the same. And all the other traffic, typical crap getting out of New York. It's basically the same traffic we always have.
Thank you very much for that traffic report, Silvio Dante, our traffic consigliere. We now go live to sports. Here's our sports commentator, Mike Francesca, who's like Mike Francesa, but not exactly, because I don't do that good of an impression of Mike Francesa. So here's Mike Francesca.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here on the radio. Yesterday was the Jet-Giant game. Total disaster for both teams. Disaster. Both teams were horrible. They were absolutely horrible. Both coaches deserve to be fired immediately. They should have fired them right there before the game. I thought there should have been a pregame ceremony where both coaches were fired. But they didn't have that. Total disaster for both teams. The Jets won the game. Who cares? Both team seasons are over. The Giant Cowboy game, the Black Cat, was the most interesting part of that game. It really was. I was there. I thought it was great. I love the Cat. When the Cat went in the end zone, the Cat was in the end zone longer than the Giants. Total disastrous seasons for both teams. Absolute disgrace. And for the money you pay for these tickets, you should expect better football. I think we have a caller, Bobby in Babylon. What's up, Bobby?
Yeah, Mike, I got to ask you a question. How come the Jets don't have their own stadium?
They essentially do. They have their own stadium. It just happens to be in the same building as the Giants. But they don't play at the same time, except for yesterday. They do that every 4 years. So essentially, you do have in the same building, you have 2 different stadiums. You can't. I've been to Jet and Giant games there. You can't tell that the other team plays there, because one is blue and one is green, and they changed the stadium over from blue to green, green to blue. So you don't even know another team plays there. Now the exception is in the gift shop. If you look behind the wall, you'll see the jersey for the other team, because all they do is flip them. That was brilliant. I thought that was brilliant. You can convert the gift shop over pretty quickly. But otherwise, they are essentially 2 different stadiums. And for 8 games, there's no way you're going to build another. We're going to come up with $1.5 billion or whatever it costs, $2 billion to build another stadium. You're not going to do that. That's asinine. For 8 home games, regular season games, that's asinine. The tickets are expensive enough. If anything, it should have had a dome, because it's freezing in the winter, and I hate the rain. You get very wet when it rains. They should have built a dome over the stadium, because it'll be dry, it'll be warm, it won't be cold in the winter. So that is why they only have one building
for the two teams. And the Chargers and the Rams are doing the same thing out in L.A., so it saves a lot of money. It's a good idea. So on to this controversy with James Bond. I'm going to go from sports to movies. So James Bond has been in 24 different James Bond movies. Now they want to introduce a female as 007. So the usual social justice people were like, oh, this is great. No, it's not great. It's terrible. If you wanted to have a female 00, I'm all for it. You could have there are 9 00s. Okay. There are 9 00s. You could have all of the other 00s be female. I don't care. Okay. You can't even have another male as 007. You can't even have some guy named Nigel Worthington become James. James Bond is the core. Okay. The core of the spy series. He's the core. Every other character is interchangeable. And they have made those inroads. You have had actors of both races and actresses of both races play Moneypenny, Felix Leiter, some of the other 00s. But and James Bond could be any race, doesn't matter. But he has to be a male person, obviously, because it's James Bond. And it has to just be James Bond. It can't even be a different male name. So I thought it was going to be that guy. What's that guy's name? Idris, whatever his name is. He was perfect. He had the goatee. He looked badass. I thought he was going to be the next James Bond. He was very suave. He was on GQ. He was perfect for the role. Idris, I forget his last name. Doesn't matter. He was perfect for the role. And he should have been cast. Now, the same actress that's going to be 007, she could be, and I actually understand they're rewriting it because the fan outrage was so, because you can't not have James Bond. You can't never have a James Bond again. That's unacceptable. It has to be James Bond. My favorite M was Judi Dench. She was terrific. She was the best M. I loved her as M. I cried when she died. I really did. I cried in Skyfall. I was in tears. So you can have all the other 00s do whatever you want. They're all interchangeable. M is interchangeable. Q, all those other characters are interchangeable, except James Bond. Do you understand now why people were up at arms? Because they don't want to see that character, James Bond, go away. Let's take a call on that. Freddie from Freeport. What's up, Freddie?
Yeah, Mike, I think you're off base there, Mike, because, James Bond could be anybody. And I'm a big Bond fan, and I think, I don't care who he is.
Okay, if you're a Bond fan, what is James Bond's other title besides being in the British Secret Service?
I don't know.
Okay, then you're not a Bond fan. Get off the phone. Okay, if you don't know that James Bond was a commander in the British Royal Navy, you're not a Bond fan. You're not. That's just a fact. You're not a Bond fan. So I think we have, we're going to talk about Jurassic Park, and we have Donald Trump is going to talk to us about Jurassic Park. Mr. President, this is not political. This is just going to be talking about the movies, this Jurassic Park series. Donald, what did you think about Jurassic Park?
First of all, Mike, I thought the Jurassic Park movies were a total disaster. They were a disaster. So many people got killed in these Jurassic Parks, and every time they opened up a new park, no safety measures. People were getting killed by the dinosaurs. That idiot, John, whatever his name was, I spared no expense. We spared no expense. You build a good containment for the T-Rex. First of all, I wouldn't have even had a T-Rex. I wouldn't have had a T-Rex.
Why wouldn't you have had a T-Rex, Donald?
Because it's a very dangerous dinosaur. Okay, those other ones of the raptor, whatever the hell they were, very dangerous dinosaurs. Killed a lot of people. What I would have done was I would have only made the dinosaurs that ate the leaves. Weren't they terrific? Everybody loved those dinosaurs. They were bigly, huge dinosaurs. They were like 10 stories tall. Unbelievable. And they weren't dangerous. So nobody would have gotten killed. And if I was going to have a T-Rex, and I already said I wouldn't have a T-Rex, but if I had a T-Rex, I would have built a bigly wall that was twice as high as a T-Rex could jump. Okay, big wall, walls work. Big wall, and I would have put like a moat so the T-Rex couldn't have got anywhere near the moat, and he would have looked down on the T-Rex and everybody would have been safe. A big wall like 10 feet thick. Okay, and then that's like a little platform for the people, and they can look over the wall, and the T-Rex is underneath them, and they don't have to worry about the T-Rex. But again, I probably wouldn't have had a T-Rex because you never know. You never know. You never know what you're doing with dinosaurs. They've been extinct for 65 million years. You just never know.
Donald, what did you think about the fact that the guy spared no expense on the park, but wouldn't pay Newman from Seinfeld, the guy who was the only person with the passwords to run the entire park? Why wouldn't he just pay him a fair wage?
Stupid. Okay, stupid. The IT guy, you got to know what you're doing with the IT guy. Why was he allowed to leave? You can't have a guy like that leave. He's the IT guy. Okay, we have a producer for the radio show. Your show, you don't let Bobby leave. Bobby's got to stay. Okay, he knows how to run the computers. Otherwise, there's no show. So I would have paid that guy. And Bobby's laughing. He loves that joke. You got to pay your IT guy. It's common sense.
Thank you very much, Donald Trump, with his perspective on Jurassic Park. We now go back to John Santo in the radio studios. Thank you, Mike Francesca. Mike Francesca. So the new movie that's coming out is The Irishman, and here in the studio with me to talk about The Irishman is Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. Guys, welcome to the radio. Yeah, thanks. Thanks. All right, guys. So this is another Martin Scorsese movie, and who's the Irishman? That'd be me. I'm the Irishman. I'm the Irishman. Weren't you an Irishman in Goodfellas, Bob? Half an Irishman in Goodfellas, half. Now I'm a full Irishman. But you're Italian, so that's interesting. And Al, who are you? I play Jimmy Hoffa in this movie, and I'm a great Jimmy Hoffa. And this movie is about an Irishman that knows Jimmy Hoffa. And all right, so we have the usual. So you basically have in this movie almost all the living people that were in all the other Martin Scorsese mafia movies in this movie. Basically, that's true. Very interesting. I'm very interested to see this movie. And so when they say the Irishman's got to go, are they talking about you, Bobby? They are. They're talking about me. Definitely me. All right. So it doesn't seem like you're going to tell me a lot of the plot. You're going to have to tune in, I think. Absolutely. Tune into the show. Because Bobby and I, this is our first project since Heat. That's right. You guys were in Heat together. And how was that working in Heat together? It was pretty good. You know, that scene in the diner, classic scene, really. Absolutely. We were there till 1 o'clock in the morning filming, and we ate 5 breakfasts. That's how long it took to film. We had to do it late at night, and it was rough, but we got through it. Yeah, we did. That was a great movie. I love doing Heat, and we're really looking forward to this new movie. So this new movie now, The Irishman, it's going to be on Netflix, but it's in the theaters, limited release, and that's to qualify for the Oscars. Is that right? Yeah, that's correct. Okay, so we look forward to seeing The Irishman, and when does that come out? Sometime in November. I don't even know. All right. Thank you very much, Al Pacino and Jimmy Hoffa. As Jimmy Hoffa and Robert De Niro as the Irishman. Okay, so we also are tracking another program that's been on Amazon Prime. It's called Jack Ryan. And Jack Ryan is a offshoot of the Tom Clancy movies. The first Tom Clancy movie, that's coming up on its 30th anniversary, The Hunt for Red October. And that starred Sean Connery, Fred Thompson, and James Earl Jones. Excellent movie if you haven't seen The Hunt for Red October. Great perspective on what it was like during the Cold War. That was the height of the Cold War in 1984. It takes place. Since then, with the Jack Ryan movies and the one that Ben Affleck ruined. I mean, the one that Ben Affleck did, The Sum of All Fears. Those are like prequels. This Jack Ryan series is also a prequel. Before he meets Admiral Greer, but it's pretty good. It's it's modern. It's high tech. It's got all that stuff. But the best, in my opinion, the best one was The Hunt for Red October. It starred Sean Connery as Captain Ramius. Fred Thompson was the admiral, and James Earl Jones was another admiral, also the head of intelligence for the CIA. So I love watching that movie. I've seen it over and over again. My wife doesn't like watching it with me because I start doing my impressions during the movie, and she doesn't like that. So I do Sean Connery. It's time to set sail for the United States. And then she she hates when I do Fred Thompson. I'm like, Jack, the only way to get you on board the Dallas is to fly up there in a chopper. The only way to get you that far north is to strip it down and turn it into a flying gas can. And if you haven't seen the movie, trust me, that was a pretty decent Fred Thompson impression. And it also stars James Earl Jones. And there's a scene in that movie where he tells a Navy commander, "You understand, Commander, that torpedo did not self-destruct. You heard it hit the hull, and I was never here." And he flashes his credentials. Wouldn't you have had to have known who that was before you detonated the torpedo? And wouldn't you have had to know what the plan was? And, why was it necessary for him to show his identification again? I would have think that would all have been pre-done. But then again, I read too much into the movies sometimes. So let's pause for station identification. Hello. This is former President Barack Obama. You're listening to the radio on Strong Island Radio. Thank you, former President Barack Obama. All right. We have an update. No, we don't have an update to that. All right. So we do have another sports story, but Mike Francesca has already left. You guys may have heard about a coach on Long Island that was accused of running up the score. It was a 60. What did they win? They won by more than 42 points, and there's a rule in Nassau County that you can't win by more than 42 points. So I guess they have to me, the game should either end or they should just have a mercy rule where the game ends. How are you supposed to not score? I mean, even if you give the third string kids the ball, aren't they going to want to score, or they're just going to want to run the ball the yard and stop? Before they get into the end zone. So I have mixed feelings on this. I understand you don't want to have these crazy scores, but at the same time, if you want to stop the score from going high, make a play. The defense has to make a play. So to me, it's a weird rule. Next week we'll talk about it a little more because I think they're going to rule on it next week, and we might have some callers call in next week. We do need sponsors for the radio. So if you have a business and you'd like us to do commercials, I can do commercials in any of my celebrity impressions, and we have over 50 for you to choose from. I had a gutter company was going to do a commercial, but that blew away. So, but we're going to call them back hopefully before the fall ends. Okay. All right. So I think we're almost at the conclusion of our premiere episode. We're going to end a little early tonight because I did not time the number of stories correctly. But no, I'm just kidding. We're going to do probably 30 to 45-minute shows. This was our first episode, so we'd really appreciate your feedback. Anything else you'd like to see on the show, please let me know. You can reach out to me on Facebook or johnsantocomedian@gmail.com. I would appreciate the feedback, and if you have any other suggestions or would like to be a guest on the show, please let me know as well. So until next week, thank you for tuning in to The Radio.